Good morning. Isn't this wonderful how we were able to come together as an interfaith community and actually experience a complete interfaith community? Hearing the call to prayer from the Muslim tradition, hearing a native song and prayer from another very different tradition. And we all come from what? I bet there's a hope. Some Catholics, Protestants, any Jewish folks. This is the wave of the future. This is the way things are going. You probably know that traditional Christianity is dying very rapidly. It's the Methodist Church, of which I was a part, peaked in 1964. I mean, that was the last year they reported a growth. So every year since 1964, it's been down rather than up in terms of, and that Presbyterians are more rapidly dying than the Methodists are. And you can keep running down because this is the future. It really is the future. I read recently that there is a building being built, of all places, it's in Berlin. In Berlin, they are building it where they are going to have worship, but from the Muslim tradition, from the Jewish tradition, and from the Christian tradition. And then different days of the week, I guess there would be a different, I guess Muslim will be on Friday, Jewish on Saturday, Christian on Sunday, but they're all going to be administered from the same facility because I love what you do, David, when we go around and look at each other and say namaste. But you really look at each other and you really recognize. I love the definition of Jesus that appears in A Course in Miracles. And the definition of Jesus, it says Jesus was a man who saw the face of Christ excuse me, in all of his brothers and sisters, and remembered God. How did he remember God? By seeing the face of Christ. The Course in Miracles says that the most basic law there is in the universe is the law of cause and effect, right? Or at another place, projection makes perception, so it's what we put out, and most of our projection is of a negative sort. We'll talk about that in a minute, condemnatory, judgmental kind of thing. But there's another kind of projection the Course talks about as well, which it calls extension. And extension just means that we look out with love upon everything that we see. That's very... And really what the whole Course is about, it's about trying to help us to change the way we see, right? And in fact, as if you're a student of the Course at all, very early on in the Course, says, I want to see. That's one of the workbook. And then I want to see differently, right? I want to be able to see differently. And what I want to be able to see is I want to be able to see with love in my heart. And it's funny that it takes us training to do that. But as we're really young, children, I have two relatively young grandchildren, and they're just all love, especially the youngest one is just, she's just got this biggest smile on her. She can't not smile. It's just, and you can't but want to hug her and hold her and love her, right? And that's what we are meant to be for each other. At the same time that is true, the Course in Miracles says that this is an insane world. It has been an insane world. And hopefully we're going to be helping to change that. In fact, the study of history is this, it's interesting. There's this phrase, it's just one damn thing after the other, meaning referring to history. And I looked up to who said that, and it's attributed to Ralph Waldo Emerson, Churchill, Edna St. Vincent Millay. There was like 6 or 7 people that's all attributed to. Well, it's an easy enough sort of thing to say it is just, and that's been our history. The history of this world is a study of war. And that's not a very pleasant thing to study, right? So thank you, David, for inviting me to be back with you today. It's interesting, David graduated from the new seminary, of which I was a part, and I was helping in his ordination in 1988. The new seminary has sort of morphed, is that right? 98, I'm sorry, 88, 98. And Arif just graduated in June from the seminary in New York, right? So it's now called All Faiths Seminary rather than the new seminary. That kind of morphed, but it's just exciting that both of these guys that I helped to ordain are here and sharing together. And Arif is very nearby. He's over in Detroit, helping to work with the revitalization of downtown Detroit. What a wonderful thing to be doing, to bringing life back to a place that needs to be revived and brought back to life again. Right. So very briefly, the topic that I chose for this morning is in keeping with what I was just saying. It's one line from A Course in Miracles. Those of you who are students of the Course, I hope some of you can come this afternoon, whether you're a student or not, from 1:30 to 4, I guess it is. Even if you've been a student for a very long time, and anybody who's been a student for a long time will tell you that this is true. I've been studying for 44 years, and I still come across every now and then a line that I'll go, where did that come from? I mean, it's like, I never saw that before. You know, all of a sudden it jumps off the page. It's always been there. The passage that I want to share with you, one of the reasons that it didn't jump off the page to me more quickly is because it's actually in the Song of Prayer. The Song of Prayer was a pamphlet that Helen wrote in 1977, so it came after the Course. The Course was published in 1976, the Course consisting of the text, the workbook, and the manual for teachers. And then there were 2 pamphlets. There came one called Psychotherapy, Purpose, Process, and Practice, and then one called The Song of Prayer. And this is from the Song of Prayer. And the title for this morning's message is one line from that. I'm going to read the 3 or 4 sentences that it came from, but there's one sentence that I want to highlight and want us to think about for the next 10 minutes or so. And that line is, and I'm going to break it into a sentence. It's just one sentence, but I'm going to break this one sentence into phrases. Right? Phrase number 1, never think. That's really a good one, isn't it? You know, never think. What do you do when you meditate? What is the purpose of meditation? Well, one of the purposes of meditation is at least to quiet the mind. It's really hard not to think, but at least let me get this down to a mantra, or let me get this down to I'm just counting my breaths, or I'm not doing something which is projective. I'm not trying to start thinking about all the list of things I've got to do today. If you meditate early in the morning, that's a temptation to start going through don't forget about that. You've got to go to the bank before the day is over. No, the idea is to just be receptive rather than projective. As it is, our minds are very, very projective. But if so much of what I see going on now, it's interesting, in October, I'm going to be participating in a retreat that's happening in North Carolina, near Boone, North Carolina, a lovely, lovely setting. I've been there once before. And we're going to have not only A Course in Miracles, A Course of Love, and several others who are, quote, channeling a book I've been listening to in the car called Jesus Speaks. And this isn't new. I mean, the fact that this, anybody have ever, there's been many times, God Calling, 1933, you might even not even know about it because it was so long, but it was a very helpful book for people back in the 30s, and the impersonal life, and Kale Gabron's The Prophet. I mean, that has got to be a download. I mean, that's got to be a godsend that helps so many. I think that sold like 12 million copies or something, right? Phenomenal. And you know that's the Word of God, just as we find the Word of God in, well, literally all of our scriptures, right? It may not be purified. It may have been messed around with by people in the way who didn't want certain phrases in there, etc. But it's still, but one of my favorite lessons, one that I've actually done here as a meditation in the past, is God's voice speaks to me all through the day. Huh? God's voice speaks to each and every one of us 24/7. There is never a time when God's voice is not looking to communicate with us. So the problem, quote, problem, is that we chatter and in our heads, and the chatter gets in the way of being receptive. So we can't hear because there's this other thing going on that we call an ego, which is dominating the mind. So we want to get the mind down, whatever it does, whether it's music that helps me to stop that. It kind of is chanting. Every religion in the world has chanting as a part of what, and that's really good, that chanting. It just gets the one theme, the one idea coming into mind and nothing else but that. But let me get to this sentence. So the sentence is, never think that you can see sin. I'm going to stop. This is the 4 phrases in this one sentence. First, never think that you can see sin. I mean, that says a lot right there, doesn't it? That you can see sin, that you see problems, that you see difficulties. Look at how much of our time is spent complaining, fault finding, griping, just stuff that's going on. And just I came here. The reason I'm here today is because I was invited to do a presentation on Friday and Saturday in Kitchener, Ontario. And so seeing how that, I decided to fly into Detroit. And when I went to pick up my rental car, it turns out that the rental car company didn't have the cars ready. They had more people in line to get cars. They were out trying to wash the cars and get the cars ready. So we had to wait a little while before we could get our cars. And there were about 9 of us online waiting to get the cars. And I just noticed that there was so much, well, excuse my language, bitching, griping, complaining. No, what the hell is this company? I'm never going to work with this company again. Why can't you have cars here ready for us? And, well, the truth of the matter is within a half an hour we all had our cars. And we were all on the way. But in the meantime, there was a lot of grumbling going on. Why can't this be a more efficient? You know, why can't we let things be what they are? Obviously, they got backlogged, and things like this happen. Tell you about another interesting, this is another little event that happened. I was in, the last trip I made in last month in June was to Chicago, and I went around, spoke at Milwaukee, Madison, and a couple of other places. I was in, told Dave this morning. I was pulling into a large shopping mall in Madison, Wisconsin. And I was going into a Barnes & Noble store, excuse me. And I saw a woman with a kind of a withered arm who's walking toward the car, kind of limping, like maybe she's had a stroke or something. And I know she was going to be asking me for money. In fact, as I like to keep money in there's a pocket in your door of your car. Keep a few dollars in there. I'm making a suggestion. Keep a few dollars in there, right? That you can use to give to these folks that come up to your car, right? So here she comes, and she said, and I need $7 more for today, and I can get a place to sleep tonight. And so I gave her the money, and just as I'm giving her the money, a woman in a white Mercedes pulls right up beside the two of us and rolls down her window and says, "She's always out here, you know." And I said, "Yes, I know it must be very hard work walking around in a hot parking lot all day long trying to get enough money to sustain your needs. This is her job." And when I said that, the woman in the Mercedes hit the accelerator, boom. That was not what she wanted to hear. Right? It's just an edit. It's just, which way do you want to go with this? You want to be loving to people who are literally asking you for help? Or do we want to be complaining about the fact that this is her job? She's just doing her job. And your job is to help her. That's your job, right? Let's go back to the sentence. Never think that you can see sin in anyone except yourself. Whoa. Never think that you can see sin in anyone except yourself. Right? So, accept yourself, that means that that's where the work is, because you're the projector. You know, you're the one who's making up the world that you see. Principle number 7 of the 50 Miracles, Principles from A Course in Miracles, says miracles are everyone's right, but purification is necessary first. So this is what I'm the one, it's not about me cleaning up the world. It's not about me fixing the world. In fact, the Course suggests, choose to change your mind about the world. Don't worry about the world. The world will actually get fixed if we can get fixed. But the work starts here. The work starts inside me. It doesn't start out there in terms of what's going on. It depends upon how I'm choosing to look. I wanted to tell you a little story somebody told me about. They said back in the 1970s, during the Watergate time, when Nixon was being kind of demonized in a lot of cartoons and things, a friend said that he was a part of that. And he said when Pat Nixon died, he was watching on television at the funeral of Pat Nixon, and he saw Richard Nixon completely break down in tears, just disintegrate in tears. And he said, seeing that, he realized this is a man who made some mistakes, but he's a human being who has needs and needs to be loved and responded. He says he never looked at him the same way again, right? And it doesn't matter who that is that you're trying to look, every one of us, whether it's the woman in the parking lot, Richard Nixon, whoever it is, right? How am I going to choose to see that? There's nothing out there. I love really short sentences from A Course in Miracles. One of them is, there's nothing, this is a very interesting, very short sentence, 5 words. There is nothing outside you, period. What does that mean, there's nothing outside you? There is nothing outside of your mind. It's all in your mind. There's nothing out there except what you see. So it's what I choose, how I choose to see the world. And I can choose to be blessing it, I can choose to be loving it, I can choose to be helping it, I can choose to be doing whatever I can do to make it better through my eyes, or I can be bitching and griping and complaining and pointing out what idiots there are out there in this way. It's just full of idiots, This is insane. And the Course does say that it's an insane world. It is an insane world. But how do we fix the insanity of the world? We fix the insanity by being sane. I'm going to be saying myself. And I'm going to become aware. There's never think that you can see sin in anyone except yourself. So I'm going to look for where it is in myself that the insanity is there, and that's the part that I need to clean up and I want to improve so that I can see the way Jesus saw, to see nothing but the face of Christ in every face that's coming back my way. Projection makes perception. Let me quote that line. It's one of my favorite passages. Projection makes perception. The world you see is what you make it. Next word's a very interesting phrase. Nothing. It's nothing more than that. Wow. The world is what you make it, nothing more than that. But it is not less. Therefore, to you it's important. It's a witness to your state of mind. It's an outside picture of an inner condition. As a man thinketh, so is he. What's interesting about that line is that it's in Proverbs. Jesus quotes it in the Course in Miracles. Except in the Course, it says, Jesus, let me get the rest. Jesus quotes it in the Gospels, first of all. Jesus quotes it in the Gospels, except in the Gospels it says, as a man believeth, so is he. Same thing, right? Thinketh, believeth. And then here it shows up in the Course in Miracles. Then it's interesting because it's in the Old Testament, the New Testament, and in the Course in Miracles. And I bet we could find something similar to that line in the Quran if we looked around, right? So here it is. Therefore, the next line from the Course, therefore, seek not to change the world. Choose to change your mind about the world. Perception is a result, not a cause. Right? So this is a course in mind training. That's all it is. It's a course in mind. So isn't it interesting that we have to be taught how to think? Because the Course in Miracles says, you have been very poorly taught. And we've been very poorly taught by the world, by society, by the church very often, because the church likes to see sin. It likes to find the sin that's out there in the world. But there is no sin out there unless I see it out there, right? So Jesus from a cross can say, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. He can love his persecutors even under those circumstances. And by the way, he did not say that so God would understand how to handle the situation. He said it so that we would understand how to handle much less severe circumstances with things that are coming our way. And to go ahead and love it regardless. The thing you don't want to be doing is revenge, for example. Revenge is insanity. Because that would not be in keeping with the mind of God. So, I think I'm going to make my message short this morning. Amen.